When I was younger, I never consciously paid much attention to the music I would hear in games. I would always be too absorbed in gameplay and story. However, as I've gotten older, it's really starting to hit me just how much of an effect soundtracks have had on my experience of a game. And I think many people will agree with me when I bring up the game Undertale. Obviously, the song Megalovania has become such an iconic track that it's basically a meme at this point, but I certainly think it's well deserved. It's a really great and memorable track for an equally memorable boss fight. If I were to describe it, the song sounds powerful and very unlike a lot of other music in the game, which matches the circumstances. Fighting an unexpectedly powerful foe who is furious at you. If you fight Sans, it's because you've killed all his friends up to this point in the game, and the music helps elevate this feeling of power and fear as you fight him. However, if you were to ask me what my actual personal favorite track from Undertale is, it would probably be Asgore's fight theme. When you're about to fight Asgore in the neutral route of Undertale, you'll end up finding out that as the king of monsters, he's trying to do his best to help his people. He really genuinely does not want to harm you, but because he believes that killing you and using your soul to break the barrier to the surface is the only way he can free monster kind, he feels like he must. He even gives you a chance to finish any unfinished business you have in the underground before fighting him, because of how bad he feels and how reluctant he is to fight you. The beginning of his battle theme, the Bergen Trucking song, Bergen Trucking? Man, Undertale's been out for a long time and I still don't really know how to pronounce the name of the song. The Bergen Trucking... God damn. The Bergen Trucking song starts off as Asgore slowly prepares for battle. It starts off very soft and slow, and builds up to the battle. Then, Asgore's battle theme plays, after he smashes the mercy button. Asgore's battle theme sounds determined in a way you would expect a boss theme to sound, but it also sounds slightly sad. Asgore is both determined to free his people from the underground, but feeling very guilty and reluctant to have to kill a child to do so. That's what it feels like this music conveys. Someone with a lot of guilt who's fighting themselves as much as they are you. Undertale may have one of the most famous soundtracks, but there are some games with tragically underrated soundtracks as well. One of my favorite examples of this is PacMan World 2. I recently replayed this game, and while music was something I didn't really think about much as a kid, the music of this game definitely buried itself into my subconscious, because I felt a blast of nostalgia when I started listening to this music on a recent replay of the game. The game is full of so many good tracks, but I want to focus on two of my favorite boss themes from the game, that being the theme of Pinky and Clyde. Most of the boss fights in PacMan World 2 are pretty similar, and involve fighting the main ghosts from the original maze in their mechanical robots. But the different boss themes convey a slightly different tone in each fight. For example, Pinky's theme, Pinky's Revenge, fits the way she's characterized in the game perfectly. In PacMan World 2, Pinky is portrayed as being in love with Pac-Man. But that love is of course not reciprocated, which causes her to become very angry with Pac-Man, to the point of being psychotic and wanting him dead. So basically, she's a yandere. If she can't have him, nobody can. Her theme plays over the snow-themed level where you fight her with a mostly pleasant and loving light tone, with some nice jingle bell sounds thrown in as well to show how she feels about Pac-Man. But the song often gets interrupted by violent, loud, sudden screeches throughout the song, conveying the more insane and murderous side of her personality, as she chases Pac-Man around in her mech, trying to kill him with giant snowballs and a massive saw blade at the base of her robot. Of course, beating her is not too hard, really. You just have to rev roll into the side of her mech a few times and boom, literally. The same, however, cannot be said of Clyde. Clyde is one of my favorite boss fights because he's a boss that knows how powerful he is, and his theme reflects that. He tells you that he has far more confidence in himself defeating you than all other characters in the game, including the final boss, Spooky, and he's right. Ask anyone who's played this game, and they'll tell you that Clyde is the toughest fight in this game. He has an indestructible mech, and the only weak spot is on the top of its head, which can only be accessed at rare points where he rests during the battle. He spits fireballs at the player that sets platforms ablaze and can kill the player quickly by knocking them down into the lava below. That's why it's perfect that his theme conveys an intense sense of urgency. The song started with drums beating louder and louder, conveying the power of Clyde, and violins screeching as you, the player, panic, trying to dodge everything Clyde throws at you. It then continues with a calmer but sinister sounding hums as Clyde floats around the platform, taunting you, knowing you can't easily reach his weak spot. It's easily one of my favorite boss fighting themes of all time. Finally, I want to talk about the music of a game that has no boss music or even any enemies to fight, really. But this game does still use music in a way that I think is fascinating. The Beginner's Guide is basically a walking simulator, which is to say that the game's main focus is on its story rather than its gameplay. I don't even want to spoil this game in case anyone has yet to play it, but I will be discussing some minor spoilers to the game. In The Beginner's Guide, the narrator, Davey Wreden, who is also the developer of this game as well as the Stanley Parable, walks the player through some smaller games developed by his friend, Coda. However, Davey clues the player into the idea that the state of certain games may have represented Coda's emotions and how he was feeling at the time he developed them. When playing a game made by Coda within The Beginner's Guide, the player is told that Coda was more happy than usual at the time he developed the game. It's a simple game where the player cleans a house while chatting with another person. The vibe of the game is very cheerful, and the music is similarly cheerful and happy. A calming guitar strums while the player listens to a joyful voice singing and humming, adding to the cheerful feeling of the game.